Guten Tag, APUSH. We have a new video today. It's the bee's knees by the big cheese himself, Mr. Linegar. Let's make history today as we jaw over Unit 6, Day 7. But first, let's do our daily punishment. Who's the penguin's favorite ant? Antarctica. Penguin jokes, yay! Alright, kiddos. Key terms for today. The Dawes Plan, Herbert Hoover, Black Tuesday, the Federal Farm Bureau, Al Smith, the Muscle Shoals Bill, the Bonus Army, the Stimson Doctrine, the Good Neighbor Policy, Hawley-Smoot Tariff, which we've already talked about, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, or RFC, and Trickle-Down Economics. We're going to go over the foreign policy and major events in the latter 1920s, the causes and impact of the Great Depression, and Herbert Hoover's response to the Great Depression. So, as we talked about before, America is going to be isolated and isolationist for most of this time period. Some of the areas we're not isolated in is America will get involved in sending the army in Latin American countries that try to install anti-American business governments. Also, America loaned out billions of dollars during World War I, and we want our monies back. We want our money back. So we wanted Europe to repay World War I loans. Europe needed to sell goods to America, but they could not do that because the tariffs were too high. They couldn't pay the loans, so they started demanding reparations on Germany. Germany couldn't do the reparations, so it was a whole cyclical things. Europe thought that the Americans should waive their loans. We lost money, but they lost lives. Finland will be the only country to repay the World War I loans. All the other countries will eventually go default on them. That's why Finland is our best ally. So, Germany couldn't repay the reparation payments that they were doing. Germany was supposed to be doing reparation payments. Part of the Treaty of Versailles is they had to pay reparation to Britain and France, mostly France. What's going to happen is they're going to start printing more and more money, which is going to cause hyperinflation. At the height of their hyperinflation, a loaf of bread cost 120 million marks. German debts and reparations. This is going to lead to the idea of some American economists that Germans' debts and reparations should be scaled back to relieve the economic stress of Germany. So what is going to happen is the Dawes Plan will be created, and the Dawes Plan was giving a loan to Germany, so Germany could then use that to pay off the reparations, and then they would give that money to like France, and then France would use that money to pay off America for the money they owed. So it seems kind of cyclical. And it's like we get the money back, but like only interest is accruing. So America lends money to Germany to help build up the economy. Germany uses their revenues to pay reparations, and France uses some of the money they're getting to pay back the money they borrowed from World War I. But really, we're just giving ourselves money. In 1928, Herbert Hoover is going to become president. He's going to run against the Democrat Al Smith. Al Smith is the first Irish Catholic running for president. Al Smith will get crushed. Even some of the southern states that were southern states are always Democratic at this time period because of Lincoln. Even some of them will vote for Hoover because they hate Catholics. Hoover was interesting. He was an orphan. He became a millionaire. He believed in minimum government involvement and pro-business. He actually was a little bit more liberal than Harding or Coolidge, but still a pretty conservative Republican. So, some of the first moves that are going to happen is the Federal Farm Bureau will be created under Hoover. This was supposed to help farmers help themselves. Cotton and wheat prices will drop dramatically. Hoover did campaign on what he would consider agricultural relief to give welfare to agriculture, but this really won't happen. The Federal Farm Bureau will not be effective. It was meant to stabilize prices for agricultural products, but it's not going to really work. At this time, Congress will pass the Hawley-Smoot Tariff, second highest tariff in American history, which was up to 60% for some of the goods. Oh no. Which is going to lead to even bigger tariff war between America and Europe. So nobody is buying each other's goods. There's Herbert Hoover. So here we do. Here we have it. Here we have it. Here we have it. On Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929, we have the stock market crash. The stock market had been going up and up throughout the 1920s. A lot of people thought it was inflated, and that a lot of people thought that it wasn't like what the stocks were valued at wasn't their actual value, so they were inflated. So on October 29th, 1929, a lot of people are going to get panicked. They're going to think that there's going to be a crash, so they're going to start selling their stocks. And if you start selling stocks, the prices go down, and then people see other people selling stocks, and this is going to cause a chain effect. It's going to lead to the stock market crashing. The Dow is going to fall 12% in one day, which is a huge amount. More than 16 million shares will be sold during this day. This is going to lead to the longest and most prolonged depression in American history. We call it the Great Depression. As a result of this, we talked about buying on margin before, where banks were helping people buy stocks. Now those stocks are worthless because the stock prices have gone down, so people can't pay back the banks. So the banks are going to start to collapse. At this time, there was no regulation on banks. Nowadays, banks have to keep a certain amount of money in their vaults and their reserves. So if I want to go to a bank, they have to have a certain amount of money in their vaults to give to me or anybody else that is a part of that bank. Back in the day, there was no kind of laws that said banks had to do that, and banks get all their money from charging interest. So banks were loaning out almost all their money, and when the stock market crashed, they lost almost all their liquid assets. This is going to lead to the banks collapsing, which means I'm going to go to my bank and I want to get my life savings out that I've worked for my last 60 years, and there's no life savings anymore. I've lost all the money I've ever had. So the people lost their life savings also when the banks collapsed. Nowadays, we have something called the FDIC, which says that the government will pay, if a bank collapses, the government will give back an individual person up to $200,000, I believe, $200,000. So there's going to be no 5,000 banks collapse in 3 years. People are going to don't have money from the banks, so their houses will be foreclosed. Businesses won't have money to open, and businesses will lose a lot of their liquid assets, so there's going to be no work. Unemployment in America will go up to 25 to 30%. Europe had never recovered from World War I, so they're going to be hit really hard. There's going to be soup lines during this time where like a lot of churches and private organizations will have to provide soup lines for people because they can't afford food. And we have the whole tariff wars going on, so nobody is trading with each other internationally either. It's going to be bad. And here's the crash. Bam! And you see that, you see like it was like 12% on October 29th, 1929, but it was like the second highest one, the one that was actually a little bit higher was the day before that. Dang. That's the one that's the first one is the SNL crisis. 1931, that was under FDR. In 1987, it's SNL crisis again also. Here's some pictures from the Great Depressions. Dang. Supposedly, the Great Depression was so bad, stock market people, brokers would just jump off the skyscrapers and just kill themselves. They lost everything. Herbert Hoover believed that government assistance would weaken the national fiber. He was against the government helping out people. He's going to use trickle-down economics to help out the country. This is where you give money to the top of the country. You give it to the businesses and the states and maybe some of the local agencies. And we will trust businesses to use that money to hire people. It will trickle down to the rest of them. So what he does is he's going to get Congress to pass the RFC, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation. This was in 1932. It was supposed to provide financial support to state and local governments and make loans to banks, railroads, mortgage associates, and businesses so they could then hire people. What's going to happen is a lot of these businesses will just pocket the money, but they're afraid of actually hiring people or trying to expand their business. Congress will appropriate more than $2.25 billion, and it will not work. Congress will try to do more. Congress will try to pass something called the Muscle-Shoals Bill. The Muscle-Shoals Bill would have provided electricity to a part of America. It's going to be a precursor to the Tennessee Valley Authority, but Hoover will veto it because he thought it was socialistic. Cartoon picture from the Great Depression. Oh, I like this picture right here. I know 3 trades. I speak 3 languages. Fought for 3 years. Have 3 children, and no work for 3 months. But I only want 1 job. Oh, these kids are protesting for their daddies. Oh, so sad. Anyways, if you remember, before in 1922, Congress passed the bonus bill, which said that World War I veterans would get their bonus in 1942. However, most of these veterans are out of a job and they're starving. So they're like, hey, we would like our bonus early, please. We're starving. So the veterans are going to meet up and they're going to form a bonus army. They weren't an army, that's what they were called, but what they were is they were a group of people that were trying to protest and get Congress to give them the bonus bill early, like about 10 years early. They went to D.C. to protest. Hoover is going to order the army to remove them because they were sleeping in public property. The general in charge, Douglas MacArthur, is going to use force against them. He's going to send them home. He's going to burn down some of their houses they made. It's going to be much worse than what Hoover wanted, and it's going to make him look heartless. He's kicking out all these veterans that fought and bled for America in World War I. And here's some of the burning from the bonus army that we did to them. During this time, Japan will attack Manchuria. Manchuria is in China. This happened in 1932. Japan was never a full-on democracy. Japan industrialized and started to modernize after Matthew Perry came in the 1850s. Japan kind of created a democratic Republican government, Republican form of government, but it was only 5% of people in Japan could vote, and the military always had a lot of power. After World War I, Japan kind of felt like they were screwed over by the Allies, so they were going to become more imperialist and more aggressive. A lot of Japanese thought that America was hypocritical because America had just spent the last 20 years taking over, from the Spanish-American War and taking over Latin American countries. So Japan in 1932 is going to invade Manchuria. This will violate the League of Nations mandate. But the League of Nations is going to say, Japan, don't do this. But remember, the League of Nations has no army, so they're not going to be able to stop it. Other countries could have stopped Japan if they would have taken united action, but no country wanted a war. So no country is going to do anything. There's going to be some informal sanctions in the United States, but the government will not do anything really. This will lead to the one foreign policy that that Hoover's going to do against Japan. This is called the Stimson Doctrine. It was named after his Secretary of Defense. And the Stimson Doctrine said that America would not recognize any land Japan took from China. It violates, because what Japan was doing is violating the Nine-Power Treaty. And this was made by Dr. Seuss pretty early on, warning against Japan in his racist way. So for Herbert Hoover, he doesn't have a lot of money to invest abroad. So even if he wanted to be an imperialist, he really couldn't do it. Hoover, unlike Coolidge and unlike Harding, is going to try to improve relationships with Latin America. America is going to get less involved in Latin American countries. So even if they create a government we don't like, we're not going to get involved that much under Hoover. This is going to be the beginning of the good neighbor policy, which the next president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, will also do as well, to try to improve relationships with Latin America. And look at them. We have America right here, Latin America right here, and they're fisting each other. I mean, no, they're not. They're shaking hands. But like bump, man. Everybody loves each other, except for the whole Great Depression. Bad times. All right, kiddos, that's all I have for you for today. Until next time, deuces.